I think that the reason that Bitcoin is going to win is because of the community ethos.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets. Let me lay to rest the bugaboo of what is called devaluation.
This argument that the prices are going up about 2%, nobody believes it.
Some of the best funded companies in the Bitcoin space, the most powerful miners, billionaires, have tried to change and co-opt and alter Bitcoin to shape it to their liking. And without these incredibly hardcore sort of high priests of the Bitcoin protocol, it would have been hopelessly malleated in all number of ways. And so there is a reason why someone would be incredibly protective of Bitcoin.
We don't take shit from anybody. We don't have to listen to what people kind of want to push for Bitcoin, because people think that they can come into the space, these big influencers, and they think that they can change Bitcoin and try to fix it and make it better. But we all know that Bitcoin fixes you. You don't fix Bitcoin.
Some people see toxic maximalism as like a bunch of mean people who are bad for Bitcoin, but in reality, it's the complete opposite. It's really good. I see toxic maximalism as like Bitcoiners from all over the globe, from all different walks of life, really coming together for one goal, and that's hyper Bitcoinization at all costs. So nothing else matters. Fuck your feelings. No one cares if you don't like Bitcoin. We're going to the moon and we're ushering in hyper Bitcoinization.
I won't stop until every single shitcoin channel is defeated, because they are poison, and that's my mission.
Because, if there is an escape, that escape will be used.
Welcome to Toxic Airwaves. How you doing tonight, Skeef?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Had a good time at BitBlock Boom.
So you're joining us from some random hotel in the middle of nowhere that you just kind of stopped into.
I was on my way back. Delayed getting out of Dallas, and it threw everything off, so I haven't quite back to Arizona.
I don't know about you. Every time I cross that from New Mexico to Arizona, I just breathe relief. I'm home.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I was hoping to at least make it to Wilcox, but I didn't get there.
Yeah. Good old Wilcox. I thought about moving out there. It's beautiful out there.
Yeah.
I know a guy out there on some. He's trying to get a mining set up in Wilcox, which is interesting. But yeah, it's only time before Bitcoin is a major move into zone, and I think it'll probably be sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah. BitBlock Boom. Sounds pretty dope.
This is super fun. It was in 2020. It was one of my favorite trips of the year. This year was great too. It's where most of my I'd say probably 90+% of my real close friends through Bitcoin go to BitBlock Boom every year. So it's awesome to see everybody in person. Got to see Bobo Dread beat American Hodl in a foot race, and I recorded that. I'll put that in the Telegram channel.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, the Jamaican won.
I'm pretty fast. I think I went a foot race at a Bitcoin conference.
Yeah. It was, there was some other, I won't say who was in the other ones, but it wasn't quite as impressive, I'll say that.
I've never been able to get in as good of shape as I was in high school, because I was a basketball player, and just, I don't know. It was good. I think I ran a 4.6 as a freshman. Oh yeah.
Yes, we did, Don. I was just telling Alex that I shared joints with a minimum of 50 people this weekend. So if nobody comes with the run, then we can put one more nail in that coffin.
Yeah. I mean, I just still can't get over the idea that pot isn't legal in Texas, and I can't really get over the fact that it was illegal in the first place.
Yeah. No, there's no, I mean, that's like my big hang up with a place like Wyoming or South Dakota, which otherwise is basically, I mean, parts of Wyoming and South Dakota are just as beautiful as Colorado, but actually free other than pot.
Yeah. I mean, like I used to be a pothead in high school, and I used to like advocate for it and give like dumb arguments for why it is, like the classic, like it's natural, it comes from the ground type argument. But what it comes down to is it's nobody's freaking business to decide what you do.
Right.
It's a plant. Like, you should be able to smoke it if you want to. Are you putting anybody in danger when you're smoking pot? No. Are you harming anybody? No. Then you should not be put in a cage for it. And I think that is the best argument. But yeah, Don says Trip confirmed that Texas is a LARP. Why do you think there's like such a disconnect between liberty in the United States and like the actual legislation that's passed?
What was the first thing between what in the legislation?
Like the actual like principles of liberty and what reality is here.
I think it's mostly, I don't know. It's like the state has just grown continuously since 1915, and it's just you keep like growing it tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and it never goes the other direction. It's like, I mean, we have jokes like Reagan was supposedly this guy that was anti-government. It's like he grew the government. I mean, what he did was there was like a slightly reduced rate of growth, and most of that went towards defense spending anyway, because he was, just pushing tons of money into this Cold War. So I think there's really no mechanism or incentive for them to reduce their own power. So they never do, and just keep that's why Bitcoin's so important, is because that's the mechanism by which we take away their ability to accumulate power and resources. And the only I don't know, it's like the only thing these people respond to is force and an opposing power. They don't respond to logic or reason or arguments or anything like that. I mean, we were talking about marijuana earlier. That's another good example. It's enough people getting together and saying, go fuck yourself, this is stupid, is what changed it, not lobbying politicians and any nonsense like that.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I've been rereading the Bitcoin Standard the past week, and Saifedean talks about that, how we came off the gold standard in World War I, and just how destructive that was, and what that allowed for in total war. And he said, which is really interesting to think about, like how much shorter and less brutal World War I would have been if they didn't have the ability to just print endless amounts of money to fund it. And we're looking at that in Afghanistan right now, a 20-year war that accomplished nothing. Like, that wouldn't be feasible in a hard money system. And
yeah. And even more so in a Bitcoin system, where the only way you can extract value is by people at scale, is by people voluntarily providing it. And so, I mean, imagine the argument of, hey, we're gonna, go fuck around in this country that, it doesn't really affect us in any kind of meaningful way, and we're soliciting donations for that. It's like they'd get like $100.
Yeah.
They get 2.whatever trillion, which is the amount that they say they spent on it. So it's actually multiples of that. But yeah.
So somebody's asking if there's going to be a giant psyop to try and get us back into Afghanistan, and I think if there is, it's going to fail pretty bad.
Yeah, I doubt that they will try. I mean, that many billions of dollars of stuff, I can't imagine it gets left behind on accident. I mean, they need it. They need powerful enemies in the region to justify these wars. And so I definitely don't doubt that they will try. I have a really hard time, even with how ridiculous a lot of this stuff has gone lately. I still have a really hard time seeing them be successful at that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one thing that encourages me is that a draft today is completely untenable. I mean, think about like a Vietnam draft today. There's no way. I mean, the number of Dodgers. I mean, I'd be in the Caribbean before they could even finish the sentence if they did a draft today. And so many people would be over, or just drive over to Mexico, hang out in Guadalajara for a couple of years or something like that. Like I've heard, there's just so many options, and especially if we're using and living on Bitcoin, even more so.
Yeah, I don't think they would even go about doing a draft, because I don't think that the military, they would need the man force like they would have in the past, because I feel like war is so different now with attacking infrastructure and waging information wars and messing around with trade. Like I think that we're at war with China right now, personally.
Yes.
And you just see headlines of like all the fentanyl flowing into the United States, and kind of seeing the psyops that they're running, and like I wouldn't be surprised if foreign powers are supporting different crazy dissident groups that are fighting in the streets in Portland and stuff like that, to just create and sow chaos. But I mean, they're doing things like shipping printed like dollar bills into our country to try and devalue the currency. Like that's pretty like aggressive and warlike, and it's really really interesting to watch that. I think it's different, but yeah, regardless.
I definitely agree that we're at a war with them, or that this country's at a war with them, not us, but yeah, this country, and that their strategy and tactics are far superior to the ones being employed by our federal government. I mean, look at, what they did with, you could call COVID a bioweapon attack. I mean, all kinds of different things. They are, and the biggest thing that they're doing is they're using debt and colonialization to control Africa and Eastern Europe, like Central Asia, places like that, Mongolia, all over Africa. They're using, these projects where they lend up a bunch of money to do whatever, build a port, build a dam, whatever. It's all their whole golden Belt and Road initiative. And then of course they own that port, and then they do it again with another part of the country, and again with another part of the country. And it's, they can take over countries, and they already have, without firing a single bullet. And that's, whereas the U.S. government's still stuck in 1800s level tactics, thinking you need to take over a physical country and control physical borders, and just complete out of date nonsense like that.
Well, I don't know like how much I agree with that, because I think it's really difficult to understand fully what's going on from Western media, which is kind of what we have access to. In the United States is very like, we have banned Huawei technology here, but they're using our iPhones, they're using, our computer systems, they're using, Tesla cars, they're using all sorts of these different technologies, which can be used as spying devices. They can be used to, I think the U.S. is very, very sophisticated in it. And I think, when I look at China, I kind of think similarly to the Soviet Union, and in the way that the Soviet Union was hyped up as like this threat, when we always had the edge on them. We always had missiles close to their borders. Like if you look at the Cuban Missile Crisis, like we had missiles and throughout Europe, right on the doorstep of the Soviet Union, and then they bring missiles to our end. It kind of evens the playing field, but it's like we're and And I think it's kind of like a similar case right now where we have the upper hand, or the United States government has the upper hand, and they have a command control economy to some degree, and it's faltering. I think COVID response has been kind of bad for them. I think the global crisis that we're in right now financially is going to be bad for them, and it's they're a giant bubble just as we are. And I think they have a huge manufacturing base, which is definitely like a strength for them and a weakness for us where we're relying on them. But I think it's reasonable to like be able to move supply chains and just completely gut the entire country as far as so I mean, it's kind of interesting, like looking at it, but what really bothers me about, war in a lot of the ways is discussed is like, we're average people living here, and we have no beef to pick with the Chinese people, who have really like, and that, just watching the media just demonize these different cultures and people when they're just, they're just people, trying to mind their business and survive and like grow a family and, do these things. And it's just, they're going to fight wars for rulers it's just, it's really sad, but
yeah, I definitely think the U.S. has a lot more power and resources for sure. It seems like we're in an information war, like maybe a cyber war or something like that. And I wish I don't know, China just seems to be using a lot more effective tactics, but I totally agree. They're everything wrong with the U.S. economy and U.S. central banking and U.S. banking system is, 10, 50 times worse in China than it is here. Just like it's what little semblance of transparency and, oversight we have is totally gone over there.
One thing that they do have going for them, and it's in a really awful way, but they kind of have a unified message, and they do that through coercion. And in the U.S., like, we're just falling apart at the seams as far as a culture where people are just so divisive and divided and do not, unify around the banner of the state. I think that's a good thing. I think we talked about that. But from a state standpoint, it's, in their ability to control, I think it's a bad thing. Unless, they manage to pull off totalitarianism, but I'm really bullish that they're going to fail based off of some headlines I've seen this week.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I saw Russia was rolling back vax mandates.
Nice.
I mean, you just like look.
No, go ahead. That's more important.
You just look at it, and it just is so unfeasible to do that, because people are going to stick to their guns, and these businesses are not going to be able to operate. Like, I don't know how the airlines are going to continue, like, unless they just continue to bail them out and bail them out and bail them out. But like, all of these businesses that are forced to vax mandate, and check people at the doors, people are just going to stop going there. And that's going to be a large portion of the population. It's like the same concept of like, when you put all this woke bullshit in movies and, in incorporated in sports and stuff like that, it's divisive. It's not how people think. It's kind of outside the Overton window. And people just stop watching. They stop engaging with that stuff. And I think that's, what's ultimately going to happen. If they were going to pull this off, they pushed it way too fast.
Yeah. And I was reading some stuff, I remember it was last week or the week before, but it was basically like a series of things around the idea that they know this is, they being, call it the Davos crowd for kind of an easy way to group people together. Like, they know that this is basically their last shot at cementing their totalitarian control. And what bums me out is when I see, people, especially in the Bitcoin space, mostly because I don't really care about anyone outside of there. But like seeing people look at that as from like a point of weakness or that, you know, oh my God, like they're so strong, they're so amazing, they're so powerful, we should be so worried, so concerned. And it's like there's plenty of stuff to be concerned about in the short term, but I really think the most likely the correct way to look at this is like them just absolutely spinning out of control. You know, the cathedral is burning in a raging inferno. Like these people are totally losing it. They are becoming painfully aware of how neutered and powerless they are. And it's like, all we have to do is keep doing what we're doing. Keep our sats in cold storage, keep, you know, making money to buy more, keep building the tools, keep building meetups. You know, I'm super pumped about the Sierra Vista meetup. I missed the first one, but I'm definitely going to all the rest of them. Like doing things like that, like building the community, bringing people in who are assets, you know, which is I think a big part of the Sierra Vista thing, and reaching people who are interested and who are, I don't know what the right word is, who are open to kind of this paradigm, this way of thinking, and yeah, getting as many people as possible into the parallel system that we're building, I think is super important.
Yeah. I mean, that Sierra Vista meetup was so badass. It was such a good time, and the people there were so awesome. They invited me to rodeo right afterwards, which I unfortunately couldn't make, but that's kind of like the energy, you know, out there. We're going to go shooting out in the desert. They have this awesome, like, open range. It's so beautiful out there too. I always drive through Sonoita to get to Sierra Vista, but yeah, those people are demoralized. You know, they've been demoralized. They've been, you know, subjected to the military-industrial complex, and just at its worst, like getting bossed around by these idiot politicians, and you know, they're seeing the implications of that and are tired of it and want out, and they see Bitcoin as a, you know, solution to that, you know, ultimately. And I think it's super dope. It was, you know, encouraging, but yeah, I was pretty stoked.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm so glad that got going.
Yeah, we're rolling. We got a good vibrant meetup scene in
and then on the other side of it, we've got to reach all the leftists, or save the leftists that we can in Flagstaff.
I don't know. There's some pretty.
I mean, there's plenty good libertarians up there, but just northern Arizona, and I just picture a bunch of granola people. But maybe that's incorrect.
No, there's some. I know some pretty badass people in Flagstaff. Like the guys from Atlas Arms are up there.
Oh, nice.
Austin Jones and Suckboy Tony. Suckboy Tony was posting some cool stuff on Twitter today about his experiments with smokeless powder and getting around this inevitable ammo shortage that is coming, worse than what we've already seen.
Yeah, I just ordered a bunch today. I found a place that had 7.62x3.9 in stock, so I ordered a case. Paid 55 cents a round, but it's okay.
You know, actually, that's not that bad comparatively, because I think like the standard now is like $1 a round.
Maybe this was just like real basic 7.62x3.9. I saw it as low as 32 cents a round within the last month or so, but then the Russia announcement came out and everything was sold out.
Yeah, and that's not going to get rolled back. Like, even if there's a Republican in office, I don't think Trump ever reversed Obama's gun ban from Russia either.
Yeah, and you know, I love AKs, but I did get an AR just to have something that shoots 223, so I can diversify which ammo I need just a little bit.
Yeah, Don keeps on saying they're making a lot of ordnance, or equipment to make ordnance, but I think, I mean, we just see it. The government has a money printer, and they can just buy up all the ammo and make it inaccessible for normal people. I think that's their strategy at this point, because they can't get away with an outright ban. But, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if Biden tries to pull something like that, because, you know, he sees no he's being pretty blatant about doing things that are unconstitutional, like we've seen with the CDC eviction mandate or ban. They ruled it unconstitutional, and then he just implemented it again. And then they ruled it unconstitutional for the second time. It's like, what's the point of the Supreme Court? You know.
I'm looking up a quote from the 1800s to put in the chat because it's perfectly. Basically, Lysander Spooner had this whole idea of how completely irrelevant and absolute toilet paper the Constitution is well over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So I always like to, which I know is not at all what you're saying, but like when people are like, oh my God, nobody cares about the Constitution anymore. It's like, yeah, no one has for at least a century, probably a lot longer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, this is why the crypto anarchism movement is so exciting and alluring and has really kind of gripped me.
There we go. Oh, it's too long.
Don said that there's a vet he works with that ordered them to dump pallets of ammo in the sea. That's pretty funny. I could totally see that.
What? Oh my goodness.
But
Does he have coordinates for that? Can we go scuba diving?
Yeah. But whether the Constitution really be one thing or another, this much is certain that it has either authorized such a government as we have had or has been powerless to prevent it.
In either case, it is unfit to exist. And that was, he wrote that down in 1871.
Yeah. Well, I think like looking at it from kind of an objective standpoint, it's failed. I mean, and I say that because it's just not being followed in any regard. But it was pretty revolutionary at its time. And I think, you know, today looking forward, you know, there's some truth that was presented in the Constitution. And, you know, we can use technology to really protect that. And it's, you know, it's funny. I guess there's a bill to ban 3D printed gun schematics on the House floor right now. And, you know, that's incredibly unconstitutional. That's against, you know, the First Amendment. But we know for sure that that's never going to be followed. Like, nobody's going to give a shit about that. There's people, I mean, they haven't been able to stop anything. They can't stop warrants. They can't stop.
And that's, I think, the signal there. And I had a lot of some conversations this weekend with people who, you know, think we need to call politicians, all that kind of nonsense. And, you know, just tried to make the point to them, like what we've been talking about here, that this is about individuals accumulating economic power. And the tyranny ends when enough individuals accumulate enough economic power and not a second before. And so, and it's like, you know, and part of that's using, you know, building and using tools, you know, like torrenting, like file sharing, and all. And yeah, you know, it's that, and I think that applies to stuff as well. Of like I recently saw on Twitter, they made a jump to the foundation. You know, quote a proper Bitcoin working for Kraken. I mean, in my view, donating to the Ethereum Foundation is like, you know, donating to someone who, I don't know, it's just like the fundamentally, I'll use a bad example, but it's a fundamentally institution that's rapid, you know, that's slowing down the process of ending human slavery. And I mean, it was 250 grand, so it was a rounding error, but it's just, I don't know. I think we need to view these institutions as, you know, I think as fundamentally destructive and evil and very bad for humanity. And there's Team Human Freedom, and then there's everyone else. And I don't know. It's like, Yeah, it was just I mean I know they've supported trading shitcoins and made a ton of money off of that for for years, pretty much since the beginning. But that was actually donating directly to the Ethereum Foundation was a whole other thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. I wonder when Kraken's going to support integrating Lightning. I know that I've never used Kraken, but Pierre came out a long time ago saying that. And Lurk's talking about Pierre in the chart. It'd be interesting to see what his thoughts of it are. But yeah.
And it's that's another good example, because them not supporting Lightning is purely a business decision. Like Lightning, I mean, it's not a technical thing. I mean, this is not inside baseball. We're like, Fold's about to roll out Lightning withdrawals. Like, there's Rivers had Lightning from pretty much day one. Rivers, how small is River compared to Kraken? I mean, there's very, very small companies with very, very small engineering teams are integrating and using Lightning at scale. It's a perfect example because they're an exchange. Their use case would be identical to Kraken's use case, but the difference is River's run by proper Bitcoiners, and it appears Kraken is not.
Yeah. Well, I kind of have a newfound, or probably for the first time, I learned to have a little bit of appreciation for Ethereum after reading the Block Size Wars, because it was nice because it sucked a lot of bullshit out of the Bitcoin scene and got a lot of people to go practice their stupid ideas on this stupid project. And I think Ethereum's a really useful tool for teaching people the horrors of a centralized system.
But also for trapping retards.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree that's a big benefit, but it's just, I mean, especially once this thing finally implodes, think about how much wealth is going to get destroyed, and how many people are going to lose money who can't afford to do it. That's yeah. It was a similar thing too, though. Is true of Bitcoin Cash. I had a similar takeaway from Block Size Wars of it really consolidated the people. It consolidated all the not all, but most of the people who didn't grasp the Bitcoin value proposition, and it gave them something else to go work on, which is that's a positive thing for us for sure. It's just it also created tons and tons of terrible side effects as well.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately kind of unavoidable because it's going to be the same thing with the fiat monetary system imploding, and we've seen this happen over the past since 2008, where the system has just stolen so much money from people that can't afford it. And I think I know a guy that got rug pulled and lost 90 grand, which was over half of his savings. And he that's what it took for him to learn and stop playing around with the shit coins and just start stacking Bitcoin and start to confront these issues. But these people don't want to. A lot of people are just resistant to challenging assumptions that their worldview and belief system is built on, and it takes a lot of pain to get there. And so I don't necessarily think that the pain is ultimately a bad thing. I mean, it's just it's very similar, I think, detoxing from the fiat system as it is from detoxing from, something like heroin. And it's going to be a painful process, but you'll benefit in the long term. And they'll probably, a heroin addict will feel, potentially for years, feel this obsession to want to go back, because that's just kind of how their brain's programmed. And fiat money programs our brains in the same sense of oh, you don't have to do work to go out and buy something. You can just swipe a credit card. That feels great. And it's kind of the same thing with heroin. You don't have to do anything to, feel good about yourself. You can just, shoot up and feel the best you ever have in your entire life. And, both are, obviously incredibly destructive. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I think that's a great parallel.
So Lurk says, look at Udi. He continues to pander shitcoin strictly for clout and probably gains. I can't figure out what Udi's messaging is.
Yeah, I don't know. He was on a panel at the Saturday plebfy thing. It was the event that had the shirt that made Don want to hurt himself, which is totally legit. That was a great tweet, by the way. But yeah, the part of it was there's one guy on the panel was just completely retarded. He was talking about how, like, he had this point that because Ethereum generates fees, therefore there's obviously good economic activity going on there. Therefore, we have a lot to learn from them. Therefore, Bitcoin needs to be more like Ethereum and embrace DeFi and NFTs. And I mean, it was just giant. Like, I don't know. I tried my best to follow it, but it was bullshit after bullshit. So it's kind of hard to kind of get Udi's point there, but he did. I don't know. It seemed like I think the most generous interpretation I have is that first of all, I've heard him many times call them outright scams and fraud and, things like that. And I think the most generous interpretation, with limited knowledge that I have, might be something along the lines of he understands the game being played. He understands what's going on, and he's just a lot more cynical than we are. It would be my best guess. There's plenty of stuff I would disagree with him on, but I haven't had an experience that would lead me to think he's a fundamentally bad guy or anything like that. But I definitely would not advise anyone, go listen to him a whole bunch or consume a bunch of his content or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely enjoy his "have fun staying poor" meme. That was a good meme.
Yeah,
his Bitcoin is digital real estate. I don't like it as much, but I think that one's kind of dumb.
Yeah, but that one also goes back to, I think, at least somebody found a reference to it in 2011 or something like that. But then again, that's also memes aren't owned by anybody. They're just there.
Yeah, you can't put your memes on NFTs when they can just be screenshotted and copied elsewhere. Yeah, that whole idea of there's something really funny about Reddit culture where they get really upset for people poaching their memes and have waged wars with people on Instagram that keep on reposting their memes, and when it comes down to it, it's just it's such a dumb part of internet culture is trying to take ownership over memes. It's and that's one of the cool things about the Bitcoin space is if you're in it to really try and help people and build a better world, where you want kids to live in and, fight these monsters, it doesn't really matter, because you're kind of growing into a higher purpose rather than just clout chasing. Watermarked memes. Fuck you, Greg. I get that joke. But yeah, it's going to be interesting looking. I'm actually feeling kind of optimistic about it. I know this is going to sound dumb, but I'm feeling optimistic about the Libertarian Party in the next couple of years.
I mean, the fact that we've been getting the governor candidate to at least show up to a Bitcoin meetup is huge. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's another thing we've talked about. It's those are, 99% my people, we just disagree on the Bitcoin part, the tactical implementation part. And if we can get them to actually use proper tactics, I think we can do some cool stuff.
Yeah. Guy Swan was on Dave Smith's podcast. Dave Smith is going to be a presidential candidate who I think is likely to win the nomination. And guy seemed like he
Oh,
orange pilled him pretty good.
For the LP.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, he's like a big Mises Caucus guy, and those guys are pretty solid. But
okay.
Yeah, one of the people on what's called the executive, I don't know, we just made up for our local county party. We just made up this thing called an executive team, which it just means that people that actually like do stuff in the party. But one of the members of the team, was texting me this week saying that he was, hardcore orange pilled and was going to make a big move into Bitcoin.
Nice.
And that, made me feel hopeful, because that's the only reason I went into that, not the only reason. I went into being involved with those guys because I thought they'd be, good resources to have, to network with. And then 2, I thought they would be the easiest to orange pill out of anybody. Mm-hmm. And I thought if we, because when I look at the Libertarian Party and I look at Ron Paul, what I think of it more as is, instead of trying to change the system from, the inside, which is just a really stupid plan, which is not going to work, I see it as, a platform to build a message off of and share it with people. And I think if that party, becomes somewhat of a Bitcoin party, I don't think it'll ever be the Bitcoin party, but if there's a ton of people in there that are Bitcoiners, and I just kind of look at like the stuff that, Surfer Jim and Bitcoin Motorist and Peter St. Onge were doing at PorcFest, and I think that stuff is super, super valuable. So, yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it, and I think we're winning.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, not about getting the right people in office, but about spreading a message of liberty so that people can adopt Bitcoin themselves and hopefully, be incrementally more free than they were before.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got asked to run for city council, which I think would be hilarious. But just thinking about doing something like that, it's like I'm going to be making decisions and having power over people, and I don't feel like I have any authority to do that. Because every decision I make is going to hurt somebody and help somebody. And I think that's just complete bullshit. I think that's a, awful system. And I think a lot of people that want to do that are misguided, or, I just think it's one of the strangest concepts. Like, I'm going to rule over, other people. Like,
yeah. But I don't know, it could be fun to like run a campaign with no chance of success, but it's just absolute Bitcoin propaganda. That'd be fun. It's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to get more than 10% of the vote, but I'm going to do speeches and events where I explain to people how and why they're getting fucked and what the answer is.
Yeah. Like Vermin Supreme.
I'm not familiar with that.
He's the guy, he ran as a libertarian this last time around, but he's the guy that wears a boot on his head and just kind of goes and makes fun of the entire system. Like, he talks about like universal ponies for all, or like he wants to create like a totalitarian system of forced dental care, and he just makes a mockery of all this stuff. I think that's kind of funny. I like the parody of it. He's very committed to it.
That I could get on board with, if like make stinky breath illegal or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think like... So it's kind of interesting looking at the general populace right now. It seems like a lot of people are kind of walking around in a coma and acting very reactionary and not very lucid. And I was listening to Alex Svetsky and Michael Krieger talk about that right now, and then I was talking about that with my little sister, who's not, fully orange pilled, or but it's really interesting to think of that in that manner.
Yeah, I actually just started that podcast I'm only about 10 or 15 minutes in. That's actually what I was listening to right before I parked here. But I am a huge fan of both those guys, Svetsky and Michael Krieger, for sure.
Yeah, they were talking about spiral dynamics, which is interesting. And it was funny when I first started listening to that. I thought, because of Alex's accent, I thought he said sparrow dynamics. And so I spent like 10 minutes trying to look up Sparrow Dynamics, which is like a gun company. And I was like, that doesn't really fit into what I'm looking for. But yeah, it's just another psychology thing that I can't get down with, like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, I think.
Yeah, I have like a super surface level, like barely looked into it, understanding of it. But I ordered the book that they referenced in there, so I'll check that out and see if I find it convincing or whatever. But it's by a guy named Don something, not Reedy.
Don says the spiral dynamics reminded him of horoscopes.
Yeah.
I totally agree. This is like my issue with like most modern psychology stuff, is I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but I think it's very limited. And I think it's helpful, for some people to be able to have like a frame of reference to understand, thinking and decision making and impacts on stuff. But I think the field of psychology generally is, I think there's some people, that are very, very talented at it, but I think those people are kind of limited. So I don't know. I've got a lot of thoughts on it. I've just seen a lot of it, and yeah.
I just put a link to an intro by that Don Beck guy in the YouTube chat. But like I said, I have not read it yet, so if it sucks, sorry. But I will read it probably tonight.
I think one really good book on psychology is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That one's really interesting.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
There's a bunch of good.
There's another one kind of similar called Survival in Auschwitz by a guy named Primo Levi, and he was a chemist by background, and the way he basically writes the whole book is as a scientist observing like nature in an experiment. And he talks about it from the beginning. Like he says, lots of people way more qualified than, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but he says, lots of people way more qualified than me are going to tell you about, why these people did it, the psychology, the philosophy, like all of these things that I'm unqualified to go into. He's like, but what I can do as a chemist and a scientist is study. And so he gets into like the logistics of how you actually survive in that kind of an environment. And it's the most, I don't know, it's obviously horrifically depressing. But it's like, he tells something as simple as, if you're in a cell with this many people and you have a bucket that everyone's using as a toilet, like how exactly do you take that out without getting cholera? And when do you do that? And because he goes into all these kind of details, you get such a ridiculous kind of inside baseball picture of what these camps were actually like. And yeah, it's a totally unique perspective on all that.
Yeah. Frankel's thesis was that, in order to survive something like that, you need to be constantly fixated on a greater purpose. And I think that kind of goes for like any hard task that you do in life. Like you need a reason to put yourself in discomfort and pain. And, you see that with Bitcoiners, where we're willing to sacrifice, things in the short term for this vision of a long-term goal. Except for Peter McCormack.
He's so fucking stupid. I just literally, I made that new Twitter account, and the first thing I did was mute Peter McCormack because I just cannot stand that guy. I can't stand listening to him. But
He's just the Piers Morgan of Bitcoin. Did you ever see that debate between Piers Morgan and Alex Jones?
No, I did not.
It was fantastic.
I'll have to check it out.
Alex went ballistic and just started screaming at him and like challenged him to a boxing match. And
yeah, because I know Piers is big on gun control. Or well, he's not big on gun control. He's just European on gun control.
Piers is a cuck. I'll just say that. But what's funny about Piers is he got a lot of heat recently for criticizing the Royals, which I think is hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Like that's where they're at in the UK, where that's like edgy and like anti-establishment. If you like criticize the royal family, ooh.
Yeah, they're a bunch of inbred occultists. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Maybe Satanists too. Who knows?
Wouldn't be surprising. Yeah, this is something I like to bring up with people. Like a lot of people like to think that there's no possibility that these people in high positions of power, are into the occult and stuff like that. And one thing I like to bring up with them is, what the Nazis were doing in Operation Paperclip, and like how a lot of those same people were brought over here. And I don't know if we can like definitively say like, Hillary Clinton is doing this, but it's not unreasonable. But what it comes down to at the end of the day, like people, I think it's important to acknowledge how evil these people are in positions of power, regardless. And for some people, I think that's like, the way that they view evil. But, for others, it's just like admitting that these people just do not care about human lives and want population control and want to manage people in constant poverty and just take all their freedoms away. But, yeah.
I just dropped it in the YouTube chat, but there's a really good series. It's about 9 hours long, but it's called Demystifying the Occult by this guy named Mark Passio. He's the same guy that did that Decoding the Matrix video that I posted. I think we talked about a couple weeks ago or something. But that's very neat. He's a guy who has done an insane amount of research on all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, he's really interesting. I watched that.
And he's a proper anarchist too. Like he comes from a very similar worldview as somebody like Larkin Rose or the guy that wrote Most Dangerous Superstition. Like comes at being an anarchist from a fundamental kind of moral framework position, which is also mine. So therefore I like it. Confirmation bias.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think about the left anarchists?
It's historically that's where anarchism came from. Like I don't know. I've never been able to understand how they achieve their ends without state control. Obviously, a lot of them think that that's possible, and so I think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where exactly the fundamental difference is. If it's like implementation and how that works, or if it's. Yeah, I guess because my best guess is that because a lot of them are very they're making bombs, like they're violent, like they're very committed to the overthrow of the state, and my best guess is that were that to ever be achieved, they would be extremely disappointed with the outcome, because the outcome would be competence-based hierarchy and all these wonderful things that Bitcoin enables. It would not be everyone being equal. It would not be no more hungry people. It would not be no more poor people. These kinds of things that they seem to value.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think like if they were going to implement something like that, I think to just go off and like build a commune would be pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what a lot of them have done. Like there's been hippie communes over the year, and that's, yeah, that for me, that's why, you know, I kind of keep going back to the dividing line is, you know, are you trying to control someone else or not? I think that's the fundamental question. You know, if somebody wants to create a group of people that read Karl Marx all day, but they go out in the forest and just kind of do their own thing, the hell do I care? Like, go for it. You know, as long as you're not, you know, as long as hurting kids isn't part of what you're up to, I can't imagine why I would have a problem with it. And so, which unfortunately, a lot of those groups do hurt kids, but that's a whole other thing. But it's, yeah, it's, I don't know. And so I'm optimistic that, you know, that we'll develop systems that just eliminate the state, and there's no need to convince a bunch of people. You know, I've already shared my thoughts on the mob plenty here. I won't go into that, but that we can create, you know, that parallel society, and we can create all of these, you know, beautiful, wonderful systems and places, and people can opt into that or not. They can, you know, they can make that decision.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that, and that's happening, and it's happening in big ways right now. And I think that's where it's really exciting. The Libertarian Party is having a meeting tonight, right now, about homeschooling and the importance of getting your kids out of school, which I think is super dope.
Hell yeah.
I'm a little bit bummed I couldn't make that one, but that's such a huge paradigm shift. There's such a big movement happening in Pima County and in Arizona in general to do that, to just, I mean, these schools are just so terrible. And yeah. But yeah, I think we're doing a short show tonight, because you still got some driving to do.
A little bit.
Yeah, we'll kind of start wrapping up. Do some shout outs. So Isaiah Jackson, the author of Bitcoin and Black America, is going to be in Phoenix tomorrow night. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I got to go on his show on CoinDesk, and we didn't talk about shit coins at all, which is good. I got to throw a couple jabs in. But yeah, I'm stoked he's coming out. I think like he's got a pretty powerful message. And it's good to hang out with the Phoenix crew. I like those guys a lot. See Santos and Russ and Steven, maybe Kelly.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
That'll be a great event.
I'm trying to think of other things.
Got to see Kelly at BitBlock Boom this weekend also. That's fun.
Nice. He said he wants to come down for one of our shows. So that'd be cool.
Fun.
He said he was going to wear a tinfoil hat sitting in between us.
That'll work. Maybe we could take him out to our sponsor, Dirtbags Bar, Tucson, Arizona, afterwards. Actually, no, we'd probably go to a good bar.
I have a made-up sponsor for tonight, Inca Cola.
Oh, nice.
They have these in Peru. It's a kind of a weird tasting soda, but they use coca leaves in making it, so you cannot find it in the United States for that reason. Even though Coca-Cola uses almost all the ingredients of coca leaves in their soda. But yeah, if you're ever in like a high elevation place, coca leaves is a really helpful for elevation. It like helps you breathe better, open up your airways a little bit. And
nice.
Yeah, they like a lot of the locals in Peru and, you know, other places, they chew it like AK-47's had Inca Cola. Yeah, they chew the coca leaves like tobacco when they're up there in the mountains, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't like, it might have like a similar effect as like caffeine or like ginseng or something like that. Not super intense, but yeah, sponsor, while we're on the topic of stupid laws, Band of Plant.
Inca Cola and Dirtbags Bar, the best place to meet your future ex-wife in Southern Arizona, at least. I talked to some of the people that were in Colombia recently, and the one guy told me a story of, he said you just like walk down the street and some random person will be like, hey, you want to buy candy? You're like, no. And I'll say, oh, how about cocaine? And he'll flip the thing over and there's just like bags of blow everywhere. Like he said, you can just find it absolutely everywhere. So I've never tried it. I have no desire to, but I thought that was a hilarious story.
Yeah. That happened to me in Nogales one time. Not that intense, but there was a guy, I was looking for like a cowboy hat, and I went and like haggled with some guy for, like 5 minutes, and he didn't come down the price I wanted, so I just left. And he chased me around the streets, and we would like kind of bump into each other and then like walk off and then bump into each other. And every single time we met, he would progressively, raise up the illicit activity that he was offering to me, which was kind of funny. But yeah, you can get into some trouble out there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't ever encourage cocaine use, but if that's your thing, to thine own self be true. Probably moderate it a little bit, but
yeah.
Zarin, you're hopping in late. We're wrapping up. I'm trying to think. I had one thing. I'm going to be going out to Omaha, Nebraska next week. I'm kind of stoked about that. I think it'll be good. I think sounds like they're doing a good push of Bitcoin education and meetups in the Midwest. I think that's a region that has a huge area to grow, so I'm pretty stoked to get out there. I think Swan Bitcoin is working on like a meetup directory of sorts, which I think is kind of interesting. But I think the way to do it is to do it the way that the Orange County group has done it, the way that Tucson or the Arizona scene has done it, where you create like a network of groups to kind of work and pool, resources together and fend off the shitcoiners collectively, voluntarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, cool. You got any shout outs to end it?
I don't think so. I guess maybe while we're talking about Bitcoin networks, OC Bitcoin Network, I'm going to try to get out there again in the next month or so. That'd be fun. Go see all those wonderful people. I love that group. If anybody's in Southern California, definitely look them up and try to get to some of their events.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you bring it up, I'm going to be in a month, I'm going to be in San Diego. So I'm going to hit up some of those guys and maybe have an impromptu event. But
yeah,
I'm pretty stoked
about
cool. That.
Yeah, let me know when that is. I might head out there at the same time. So yeah.
Say what's up to Gosla. Maybe Brian Harrington will come out. Maybe Corey, I guess, runs the San Diego Bitcoin group. I need to connect with him. I've seen him on Twitter, but seems like a really cool dude.
Nice.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the Ethereum chain split, but that's okay. Maybe a waste of time. I did some research into understanding how the Ethereum network works, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah. Oh, cool. Thank you, Skeef, for stopping your drive home.
Thank you for hosting.
I'm going to end the stream.